Do you guys want to watch some of Victoria Spartz' town hall? I am curious to watch at least some of it, but I heard that her residents gave her, well, basically hell.
We don't have more than 100 people, and it's very nice that a lot of you came. We moved our larger locations, it's over 500 people, and we already reached capacity. So my team is trying to actually set up a live stream. I feel so bad, but we'll try to do more town halls, so maybe try to do some more remotely. But unfortunately, there are rules, and we cannot accommodate more people inside, but we'll try to do live streams. So
note, they made it so only constituents can appear at this meeting. So only people from her district are in this room. So these are her direct constituents that she's supposed to represent, because she didn't want quote unquote George Soros funded whatever the fuck in the room. And so this is her voters. Well, not her voters necessarily. They didn't necessarily vote for her, but the people she's supposed to represent.
But in the meantime, before they're working on that, I want
presumably including her own voters,
to invite Sergeant Bertrand to lead us in pledging allegiance. And that actually, I don't think any other elected officials in Indiana are doing that. And there's a lot of, my team is very stressed out, police stressed out. I really would like to actually thank all of the police officers here and all our military people for their service to our public safety. Can you stand up for a second? Thank you, and I promise them that I'll behave.
I think that might be the only applause she'll get the whole night, but we'll see.
I hope we can have a conversation. So I know communication with all of you. I also have my team. I think they're all over here, but I have a few of my team member, David. He's running my constituent services, and he's doing a great job. He works already for my two here. David, I have Ryan. He came from DC, and JP.
Okay. I'm just gonna skip straight to the Q&A portion. Do you guys care if I skip straight to the Q&A, or do you need to hear our opening segment? The Q&A is what I'm interested in, so I'm skipping straight to that.
About social security.
Oh wait, actually no, people start yelling during their opening segment, so maybe not.
They're very nervous because there's a lot of drama happening. So if you get upset, just please scream at me, not on them. Please do, because they're serving the government and serving you as everyone else. But I hope we'll have a conversation. So what are we going to do? There are some issues that are very hot ticket items, so I will cover them at the beginning. The issues that I get a lot of requests, and the issues.
Oh, that's why they're screaming, because she wanted to talk, because she immediately went into the stuff. Okay. No wonder there was some negative reaction.
So we want to start. We'll have someone who is not partisan, who's done a lot of debate, and who can help us, to do that and kind of look at questions, make sure that we can have an organized conversations. And if you have anything specific for me or the team, will try at the end of the town hall, just talk with you in person and try to answer your questions if they're more personal questions, but we'll try our best. The ones we don't answer, my team is going to log into the system, and you're still going to get a response. But children,
let me hear.
It can be redundant.
Get to the question. Get to the issues.
A lot of you probably know, some maybe not, that actually I'm a CPA, and I did accounting for a living for over decades. So when I ran for Congress in 2020, the biggest issues I felt we face is our financial situations, because if we don't have money, trillions, but 7 trillion. So obviously we have a 2 trillion shortfall, right? So annual shortfall.
So she's pointing to the government budget. She's showing that there's a massive deficit.
Our debt reached,
Mind you, by the way, the Republicans have been fighting to increase the debt ceiling at the moment. So I don't know what the plan is here.
Levels.
Is she bucking with her party on that?
World War II, which was very temporary debt due to the war. This is becoming a permanent debt. It's growing more and more. So our debt situation is becoming more and more dire. We spend over $1 trillion just on interest, more than national defense. And when we refinance bonds, now with a higher interest rates, we'll be spending roughly half of our revenue just on interest. So if we don't do something about this situation,
audience is waiting very patiently.
We will have no money to be able to provide benefits that we promised. And I think that is very unfair if we don't. So we have to make sure that we do.
By the way, if you look at that debt increase, a significant amount of that was during, you could even see like Trump's first term. And like, again, he's trying to trying to increase the debt ceiling right now. He's not proposing any budgetary plans that is going to get rid of our deficit. So, I mean, is this her personal crusade, or is this just the old budget hawk Republican talking points? And just like wrapped in a veil to say, hey, we're going to cut all the things you guys like. We're going to cut the taxes for the wealthiest among us. Continue to fund a lot of the things that you maybe don't like, government subsidies, stuff like subsidies for big corporations. And the deficit will still suck. So if you offer a debt crisis paired with also cutting the services that people use, you're not going to get a positive reaction. It'd be one thing if these cuts are being made and you were actually dealing with the deficit. Then you would have a conundrum where we'd be like, okay, well, is this deficit reduction strategy going to cause a recession, and that'll just make the problem worse, and then we'll follow in the footsteps of the British, and austerity is maybe not the smartest strategy here. But we're not having that conversation because that's not what they're doing. They're making the cuts, but they're not making the cuts enough, and they're replacing the cuts with tax cuts to make it so that we aren't reducing the deficit anyway. Trump massively increased the debt when he was in office. 25% of our debt is Trump's from his first term.
How can make government efficient, and how we can make sure we deliver on promises? It seems like it used to be a bipartisan issue, but unfortunately, actually President Obama passed very significant legislation on government efficiency, and he tried to do some things, but unfortunately government needs some new tools and mechanisms and technologies that hasn't been used, and a lot of things were not accomplished. And if you see, all of the major funds are going solvent. 28, Highway Fund, Medicare 31, and Social Security 33. If we don't figure something out, there are going to be automatic cuts, and we want to avoid that. So how can we avoid them? We can do listen, even if we take all of the money from the richest people, we will not be able to pay enough for that.
The crowd is lost patience.
We'll talk about that. And listen, at some point, everything will be at the table in discussion. What we try to do right now.
She lasted longer than I thought she would. She lasted for 3 minutes out of an hour and 58 minutes. So I think that's better than I expected.
To see how this will help us with revenues. That's number one thing. Number two thing, we're trying to see how we can come up to true fraud, waste, and abuse. It used to be very bipartisan issue. If you want to have your money to go to fraud, waste, and abuse, you're afraid to stand up to all of the scammers that call you all the time.
This comes as so hollow, not only because when they're cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, a lot of these things are not fraud, waste, and abuse. What right was there to cut that program with Yale to help find those kidnapped Ukrainian children? How is that waste, fraud, or abuse? Or all those national parks people, this is not all waste, fraud, and abuse. When you destroy the entirety of USA, that's not getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is usurping the power of the purse of Congress. That is moving to the United States, tearing the Constitution in half, disrespecting the values of the country you moved to. When usually, I find immigrants are usually more patriotic because they chose to be Americans. They moved over where, a lot of us were just born here. But no, you're disregarding the values that this country was built upon, the separation of powers, in order to have a quick legislative fix and gutting all these institutions and still have a deficit crisis. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we need to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau returned $20 billion to over 200 million Americans. That's a majority of Americans. Is that helping with waste, fraud, and abuse? That's waste, fraud, and abuse directing Americans directly. But that was cut in the pursuance of waste, fraud, and abuse efficiency. All done without Congress's say, all done by a man who was never been reviewed by Congress. There was no confirmation vote. It's all done by an unelected man who just so happens to be the richest man in the world, gutting many institutions that regulate himself. So yeah, who would have been surprised that you received this type of reaction?
But I want to make sure that we can talk through stuff, and then how we can have more jobs actually, create more jobs here back home.
He's fumbling, she's stumbling.
And And I have a lot of variety. My district is very diverse, right? So I have richest county, Hamilton County, and I have some of the poorest counties that hurt significantly when manufacturing left United States. So we're trying to see how we can bring more good-paying job in manufacturing back to the United States.
Don't shift to tariffs. You get yelled at like that, and you're so okay. They didn't like my statement on the waste, fraud, and abuse. Let me just move over to the tariffs that are hurting them at the grocery store and at the car lot.
So we can people have better living. So that is things we're going to do. So social security. So let's talk about social security. Social security. It is going to be
honestly, can I be for real? When I hear any Republicans say the word Social Security, I get nervous. The fact that they even acknowledge its existence and look in its way makes me nervous. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, if Republicans came out and were honest, many of them were honest about their intentions of Social Security, there's no way they could win an election. I'm not saying all of them feel that way, but a significant portion do. And what matters, a significant portion of the influential members and the people who back them financially. And certainly aren't going to be doing the things necessary to preserve Social Security, lifting the cap so we can extend it. And if anything, expand it.
Partisan discussion. This discussion is not going to happen under this president or under this Congress. Unfortunately, there is no discussion for bipartisanship right now. So Social Security cannot be discussed. It has to have.
By the way, saying that we're not going to do anything bipartisan, as much as I agree that that is true for Trump, that there's no environment for bipartisanship, that was an environment created by partially him. And voters love the word bipartisanship. They love the dream bipartisanship. You should not openly reject the idea. You should always leave it open, if not just to appeal to voters. Saying that so bluntly, I don't know if that's really politically intelligent.
So Social Security cannot be discussed. It has to have 60 people in the Senate to agree to that. It's going to go, and it will have to be bipartisan agreement what to do about it, because we need to make sure that we deliver to seniors their promised benefits and what we're going to do in the future. So we'll have to, if we don't do nothing, they're going to be automatic cuts across the board, and we'll try to avoid that. I 100% agree. That's
it's
why
like
we need to make sure that
for
people
the entirety of the thing
that pay these benefits are going to get them,
just
right?
constant
But that is not going to happen this Congress. It's not going to happen this president. So this is an issue that you will have a chance. And next presidential debate, they're going to be in 4 years. Decide who you like or who you don't like.
Well, if you guys are upset, you can vote in 4 years. Great job. What a fantastic representative. They love you.
Right now, as I said to you, President Trump is not
power. You just won, and your reaction to voters is you can vote in 4 years. Not even 2 years, 4 years. Oh, it is beautiful. Look at the expression of that woman looking behind. Oh, God, man. Victoria, what are you doing?
Social Security is not a discussion, so you have nothing to worry, but I hope we can have a productive discussion in 4 years. Now, let's talk about healthcare, Medicare and Medicaid. It's healthcare and how much big monopolies over billing. It was a bipartisan issue. It was interesting for me that actually Vice President Biden, I will show, actually, if you look at the post, yes, and we'll do that, and we'll do them going to.
They're yelling so much, it's hard to even tell what she's saying, honestly.
Actually have a proposal.
And this is like, look at this crowd. This is not a young hippie crowd. Look at this crowd. These are mostly pensioners, okay? This looks like a crowd of largely people 60 and up. This should not, I mean, look, there are people in those ages that are hostile to Trump, of course. In fact, Biden performed overwhelmingly well with elderly people. But this is not a crowd that should be so actively, energetically hostile to her, and they've lost them. They've lost the boomers. Not all the boomers, of course, but a lot of them in this crowd.
So what are things that are happening? But what I want to explain to you, a lot of this issue used to be not partisan. Actually, Vice President Biden was calling some of these Ponzi schemes. We actually saw that recent Indianapolis article was talking about misappropriations of billions of dollars from nursing homes. Do you think it's right? Do you think Indianapolis ties conservative newspaper to write it? I don't know. I don't think they have a right to appropriate it, but like hospitals. So do you think it's the right thing to do? Well, so I'm just, if you want to listen to me, we'll listen. But if you were just really here with already predetermined idea, I'm good at facts. Well, I'm listening to you, and that's not the question. I agree with you. So let's just, so we can talk about what Doge is doing or doing, but let me tell you what Doge did. Do you think it's a bad thing or not? So if
He shouldn't have brought up Doge. She's going from like all the worst hits. This is when we're getting the physical protests. Boo! You're seeing the thumbs going down. Why would you name drop Elon? Elon just got curb stomped in Wisconsin, and that was a state that went for Trump. Okay? So I would say that the nation state, and the polling's pretty clear on it, has made their views on the man and how this Department of Government efficiency is going pretty clear. Also, thank you, chat, for making this so quickly. I'm going to see if we can make this an emote. We might. It might be too small, but it's funny.
do you think it's a bad thing or not? So if you're well, good. I obviously can tell that you don't like Doge here. But
I can tell. What was that?
Well, good. I obviously can tell that you don't like Doge here.
I can obviously tell that you don't like Doge here. Okay, well, it seems that the message has been communicated. My goodness.
But I'll tell you what they did. So they came and we happened to have a conversation, right? I want you to hear. You might not like what I have to say, but I thought you would like it. I thought you would like it. So I am going to have, let me see that. Listen, you need to hear what they really do, and if you want to hear that. So they came to the Department of Treasury.
She might not, the way she's saying it, she doesn't know how to communicate with these guys. You guys need to know what they're doing. She's saying, you know what that implies to somebody listening? You don't know what you're talking about. It's not your concerns are valid. Let's break it down. You just don't know what you're talking about. That's the message that the constituents are being sent. You got to be careful with your language in environments like this, or these crowds will tear you apart, which makes sense since you're their only representative in the federal government. You're the democracy representative, so to speak, for them. You're the person who votes for them on the federal level, and you're the one who's flanking and backing up Doge and all this unconstitutional nonsense.
And they said, we want to make sure that there is a proper authorization of any funds that disperse. This is your money. You think we should be spending your money without authorization? No, truly. Do you believe you want your banking account?
What are you debating the crowd?
Money from your personal bank account sent without authorization by someone you don't know what for. Who many people want
Is it in the
to
box?
Please. How many of you
These
want
are
your
real
personal
people.
bank account? Somebody just disbursed money with no authorization. How many of you? No. So when Treasury disburses your money, this is your money. Listen, I'm this kind of. So I'm trying to explain. Excuse me. So
Now they're just
I'm
chanting.
listening to you.
They're chanting. They're officially
I'm
chanting.
telling you, and I'm going to.
But I'm a professor and a mother, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to do that. We have plenty of questions that I hope we're able to get to, and we have several you told us to address us first before we
Oh my gosh, that crowd.
Just 1 second, guys.
Okay, we'll just do 2 or 3, and we'll do more next time. I just don't have the time.
I'm gonna go over the rules.
Oh, the crowd doesn't even want rules.
That's okay. I'll just tell you, if we're going to screen the whole town hall, it's a waste of time. We don't have to do it, and I will not do it again because it's a waste of time for people who came to hear that.
Ooh, see, now she's being assertive. That's smart. She's like, look, they don't need to hear the rules. Let's just get straight into it. See, that's more genuine. See, that's a smart comment. See, that's the thing with Victoria. She'll like throw out two really bad ones and then like one good political move. But it's like always 2 steps backward, 1 step forward with her.
Because some people actually came here to hear us. So and we'll get a chance to speak. So I'm listening, but not screaming. Because I'll be honest with you, I wanted to have a conversation, but if we're going to scream and match, we don't have to do town halls. Because next time, we're going to have, I'm updating on some issues. So anyway, so that's what Dodge is doing. Dodge is actually trying to figure out how the money is supposed to white collar.
You can see people shaking their heads.
Okay.
People are not down with Doge. Honestly, I see Doge as a mechanism for Trump to just bash down upon institutions that he could see as barriers, or, trying to crush the institutions that usually you'd go through Congress to get rid of if you wanted to like follow the Constitution. So how popular they are really might not matter that much to Trump, but at a certain point, he becomes a weight on the administration. At what point is it too overbearing that any benefit is negative? I mean, Elon pumped a lot of money in that Wisconsin race, and they still got curb stomped. And that was supposed to be a state it was supposed to be competitive. It wasn't. Before they even hit 50% of the vote, the race was called.
It's pretty much owned by anyone else, okay? So I'm good. I'm glad that we have people that really, came here. Now I understand there is frustration, but I'll just be honest with you. If I understand my role very well. That's why I have these town halls, because we want to have a conversation. But if people just come here because they want to scream, it's not productive for the people who want to do that, So we'll have conversation, we'll try to answer questions. But that is what the most questions that are very heated right now. And this is the questions, that I'm sure you have about this. So I want to make sure that you understand.
Okay, let's get to the question. Can we get to the questions? Oh my God, how long does this drag? Okay.
We're going to go through as many as the question that was posed to us by Karen.
Oh no! Ew. Sorry, I hate these. I hate these so much. I've gone to these type of events before. I remember it was for Steny Hoyer, and what they do is they have you write your question on pieces of paper, and then they take the pieces of paper out and read them out. I hate it. Have people ask the question, but put a time limit on the question of like 30 seconds or something. By adding a filter, you make it look less genuine, and you do give them, even if you say you pull it out of a hat, you give them a chance to go like, and I don't like it. Just have the voters. Why gather them all in one place if you're going to have them all write it on a piece of paper anyway?
And Fishers, you're number 155, and it's a question regarding benefits upon retirement. The way we'll do this is I will offer up, if you want to ask your question to Congresswoman Spartz directly, you're able.
Okay, thank goodness. Oh my gosh, because I've been to those meetings. I was for Steny Hoyer, and I really didn't like it. And ever since then, I've always been an advocate against the note thing. You just either ask it directly, or why even have everybody gather? Just do an online Q&A at that point. Stream your thing on TikTok.
Too, if you would prefer that I do that, I'm happy to do that on your behalf. But could I see Karen from Fishers, number 155?
Can you get the microphone to Karen, or do you want us to ask the question? Who has a microphone? Do you have who has a mic?
Okay, first question.
Can we make sure, Jessica, can you get the mic to Karen, please? All right. Yeah, make sure that we have a person on this on the other side. Right there. Karen is right there. Jessica, right there. Can you please make sure you do that? Thank you.
Okay. Hi, thank you for coming here. I actually have a letter from 1984 when I was in high school. I had to write a letter to the president, who was Robert, when I was retiring. He had one of his staff members send me something back, and I would just like to read to you what he said at that time, a Republican. He said, when signed into the Social Security Amendment in 1983, President Reagan noted that the new law demonstrates for all time our nation's ironclad commitment to Social Security. It assures the elderly that America...
I'm sorry, but if Republicans decide to make Social Security their battle, and I'm hearing rumblings, it is political death. It is political death. It is more political death than abortion. It is more political death than basically any other issue. Social Security is the golden calf of American politics. If they put their hands on it, their hand will shrivel up and die. That's my take on it. So the reason why you see Democrats constantly like Republicans will go after Social Security, they're baiting them. They want them to, because they know if they do, it's dead. And the thing is, there's a decent amount of them who do believe that stuff, but it's the type of stuff they say over dinner conversation, not in settings like this, because they understand what I'm saying, that it's political cyanide.
Will always keep the promises made in troubled times a half-century ago. It assures those still working that they too have a pact with the future. From this day forward, they have our pledge that they will get their fair share of benefits when they retire. I would like to know how you will ensure that all Americans now and in the future will receive their benefits when they retire, and also respectfully ask that you stop the limits of Social Security. For example, Elon Musk, a couple minutes past midnight on January 1st, he's done paying for the entire year. Ridiculous.
He's asking to raise the cap on Social Security to make the wealthiest among us, like Elon Musk, pay more, and everyone in that room gave it a standing ovation, because it is true that lifting the cap on Social Security would help bring more money into Social Security. It's just that the people who finance the Republican Party don't want that. And if you're a small government conservative who believes like taxes suck, then you might be of the belief that any increase of tax. Point is, it's a political winner, but a political killer for anybody who finds himself on the other side of it. Did Hannibal add the emote already? Sorry, Dan. I got distracted by Victoria Spartz.
Let me answer the question. So the numbers, as you know, are working. We have a lot of people, baby boomers are retiring, right? Less than people in workforce. So the numbers are working very negatively for us. So it will have to be a discussion. Everything should be on the table. We'll have to figure out how...
That's not a good answer. Everything should be on the table is not a good answer to talking about the future of Social Security.
Make sure that people get their benefits. But as I said before, there is no desire for bipartisanship. We tried to do bipartisan commissions. Last Congress, in bicameral bipartisan, in the Senate and the House, we actually had to introduce bills. I co-led it. I have several senators, Democrats and Republicans, co-led in the Senate. No, during presidential election, that discussion will happen. What do we need to do? But I can tell you, everything will be on the table, because we have to resolve the situation and make sure we keep promises.
CM has donated $5. UWOT.
You what? It's a good new emote. I like the new emote. Good job, chat.
To the people, but there is no bipartisanship on this issue. We cannot even put fiscal commission anymore on even people agreeing to do it, because everything's became so partisan this Congress, and no one wants to work with President Trump on the other side. So that's why it's going to be a problem. So I'm just telling you, this issue will come in the next election. It's going to be a big issue, but this issue is not going to be resolved now.
Don't they sound happy?
But as a matter of fact, I can save this progress. That's all he's trying to do. So hopefully I answered your question.
He seems like a beloved representative.
I'd be happy to go more in details on numbers, but I completely agree. President Reagan said it right. We have to keep promises. We cannot put rug on these people's feet. We must keep the promises to what may be a discussion that must happen. and hasn't happened. President Reagan said, well, Congress 30 years to deal with that. Well, guess what? Congress 30 years past, Congress hasn't dealt with it. But Congress will have to wake up. I am. And listen, and I fought so much with my own party last year to put that commission on the floor that you don't even know how much. But unfortunately, Chuck Schumer and Biden didn't want to do it and killed it. That's reality.
Did you see the look of the woman who's about to read the next question? Look at that woman in the blue on the left-hand side standing up holding that white piece of paper. Look at her face.
That's reality.
Physical pain.
Among the topics we received several questions on included the recent signal, and we received a lot of great questions on this.
Take to 2. No. Oh God, no. No, stop dragging me back.
Thank you for the $50.
But I'm going to ask Stephanie from Carmel, number 120. She asked a great question on signal. Would you like to ask it of the Congresswoman, or would you like me to ask it? We'll get a...
Whoa! What just happened? Elon just sold Tesla? Wait, what? Oh my God, that might be the smartest thing Tesla's done in forever. Warren Buffett acquires Elon Musk's Teslas for $1 trillion in cash. Do we have any story on this? Tesla Buffett. Do we have any other story, like a real? No, it didn't buy Tesla. It was an April Fool's joke. Oh, okay. Thanks, chat. I appreciate that. I shouldn't believe any of you ever. You hurt me. You hurt me. I'm in pain. I'm bleeding out all over my desk right now. And you know what that wound was caused by? Misinformation. The crisis affecting our whole country. My God. My God. How can you look yourself in the mirror? Anyway, back to Victoria Spartz, who cries in the mirror almost certainly after this.
I just wanted to see what your plan is to address the issue with the administration talking about classified military operations on Signal. And will you demand the immediate resignation of Pete Hegseth?
More than Toad, everything else, they want Mr. Glug Glug out of the Defense Department? Okay. That's surprising. But it won't.
Would demand the immediate resignation of Pete Hegseth, Michael Waltz, and the rest of the group chat.
The rest of the group chat is a hell of a demand, since the group chat was basically the entirety of Trump's cabinet, but I get the spirit. I think that being the entirety of Trump's cabinet says something. Oh my God, look at that dude on the left, shades. I like those shades.
So let me just address, no, I will not demand their resignation. So you should talk to the senators. Hopefully they'll have town halls. You're both senators that you have. So you can attend them and talk to them a little bit more. But talking about that issue, one thing that I want to share with you, I think it is actually very bad, and there is some classified, and usually classified information. We have a mechanism to share that and deal with that. But there is sensitive information that might be not classified. And one thing I have to tell you, the government needs to do a better job that we have tools for sensitive information where we can communicate with each other. So we don't have innocent mistake or just something happened by mistake. Because definitely it's not a good situation. So hopefully we'll take some, look at that and actually do it. Because we don't even have, as a members of Congress, a lot of Democrats, Republicans using Signal because we don't have any other tools. situation. You don't even cannot do that. So I think with all of the technologies that happen in the real world, it's sad that government is so behind on every single technology. And actually, that's
So
what Elon
hard
is trying
to
to do.
understand what she's saying through the crowd of boo. Answer the question. It's so hard to hear what she's saying.
Try to bring technology to the government.
Better chat says she has
Matt and
negative
Carmel, if you would like to ask your question, 438, we can get a microphone to you. Over here.
Do we have Matt? Do we have Matt?
They're allowed to ask the question, though. We do want to give people the ability to do that.
Do we have Matt?
That looks like a Democrat, if I ever seen one.
Thank you. As a Ukrainian, or at least someone who was born and raised in Ukraine, would you actually support a NATO or international peacekeeping force as part of a peace agreement to end the war and also hopefully deter Russian aggression, I mean, for the foreseeable future, or at the very least, just offer Article 5 protection like the Italian Prime Minister suggested, I want to say like a few weeks ago, or like maybe it was a few weeks ago, I believe. I mean, that's my question.
Thank you.
Now let's see her give the
I
worst
think
answer
Russia
possible.
has been allowed to get away with too much, and we have to deal with it.
Russia's been allowed to get away with too much. Okay, what? Like what? And what should we do?
Has been destabilizing a lot, and something happened, and this discussion's on the table. President Trump put everything on the table, and actually we need to make sure how we can deter further. But as you know, Soviet Union wasn't taken
That wasn't an answer to Article 5, or okay.
down by weapons. Soviet Union, which is Russia, a big part of it, was
Did she just say the Soviet Union wasn't taken down by weapons? Let me go. Sorry, are we gonna have to do a history lesson?
we need to make sure how we can deter further. But as you know, Soviet Union wasn't taken down by weapons. Soviet Union, which is Russia, a big part of it, was taken down by energy policies and financial policies. So
It was also taken down by weapons. The Soviet war in Afghanistan was a disaster. 10 years of failed policy and American smuggling of weapons certainly contributed. And American defense spending, far outpacing Russian defense spending, really put downward pressure on the economy as well as the Russians struggled to keep up. So, no.
Russia should have consequences on that, but if we don't have good energy policies and destroy our domestic energy, we're funding Russian wars. That's the reality of that situation. So we need to be smarter. Europeans need to be smarter to deal with Russia, because Putin will go as far.
Reminder, the question was peacekeeping force in Ukraine or Article 5 protection. How do we stop them from invading? And now she's talking about guns never solved the Cold War. Oh, they never used guns in the thing that has the last word being war? Yeah, really. There was no gun, there was no weapons used in the Cold War. You know, the Cold War was really a series of wars with intermediate periods between them. Whatever. But it, God, man, not even an attempt to answer the question.
He'll be allowed to go. And I think, thanks to a lot of things that happened, bravery of Ukrainian military, that what's happened with volunteers. I think a lot of volunteers from America and around the world help with that war. Also the money and weapons that we send European, but unfortunately it was not done with a strategy to deter him further. So I think it's everything on the table, and Europeans are looking maybe to have some.
Everything on the table is not an answer. You just said, well, we should do something. Oh, wow. Thanks. I appreciate that. You fucking genius. God, you should run for office.
Coalition and willing to send some peacekeeping forces there too, because we have to deal with Russia, how not to let them get away and go further. And they've been.
So did she say she agrees with peacekeepers?
Europeans are looking maybe to have some coalition and willing to send some peacekeeping.
Would that include the United States? But that would break with Trump's policy.
Forces there too, because we have to deal with Russia, how not to let them get away and go further. And they've been going through 14 or 2008 with Georgia. And they cause us problems not just there. They cause us problems in Africa They, you know, team up with China, they destabilize the Middle East and do it all over the world. We understand, you know, that it
He
is...
still hasn't answered the question about Article 5. And she said she might support a coalition of the willing. What does that mean? Does that mean the Europeans doing it all? Would we be included? Would we be a backstop?
Actually, you know, the big problem, but we need to be smart, and we deal with countries which have, you know, governments that are quite corrupt. We have to make sure that we have oversight. That's a reality. That is a reality.
Crowd's not
we need
happy.
to make sure, because I demanded to have point-to-point logistics, strategy, and oversight of money.
It's hard to say because it sounds like 6 or 7 people really making a lot of noise. And you can easily tell the moments when the whole crowd's like, boo. Hard to tell, though, sometimes when it's in that intermediate period.
Because we cannot be spending $1 billion of cash when our country is going bankrupt. We have to be smarter. We don't have never-ending money. We
Crowd
never
didn't
have
take that
But we have to
sentence
deal
well.
with Russia properly, and we'll take strategy. But right now, we at least need to force them to the table, because the war is moving in the wrong direction, and we cannot further let it escalate. The situation in there is pretty tough, and I've been in the trenches and I've seen what's happening, so I'm not just talking from just, you know, TV. I understand what's happening. It's a very difficult...
Did she just said she's been in the trenches?
Because the war is moving in the wrong direction, and we cannot further let it escalate. The situation in there is
Did she say we cannot force Russia to escalate?
And we cannot further let it escalate.
If we're going to add pressure to the Russians to negotiate, how do you add pressure without escalating either aid or sanctions? Even Trump has threatened escalation through secondary sanctions, even if nobody believes his threat.
The situation in there is pretty tough, and I've been in the trenches and I've seen what's happening.
I don't believe that. I don't believe she's been in the trenches and sees what's happening. I could believe that one day in her past she has been in a trench in Ukraine, but the idea that she was on the contact line with binoculars, like, okay, I don't know about that. I feel like I would have heard about this, but I don't know. Maybe I'm proven wrong. If anybody got a link.
So I'm not just talking from just, you know, TV. I understand what's happening. It's a very...
Chad, seems like the audience thought she was lying too.
difficult situation. We have to deal with Russia, and it's going to be very tough negotiation, and a lot of things will be on the table, but we'll have to figure out what to do with Russia in the longer run. And also on top of it, how we reform some of these agencies, that we don't have all or nothing approach. If you're a member of NATO, you have full protection. If you're not, anyone can take over, millions of people can die. All these institutions that were created after World War II are not working. UN is corrupt, and this is the reality, and we need to be smarter. So that is something we need to do, but hopefully I answer your question.
You got 2 applauses.
Our next question is from Joanne from Westfield, 335, involving tariffs. If you're Joanne from Westfield, number 335.
What's up, Marylanders in chat? I see you guys.
Congresswoman, we appreciate it. And I hope that we can be somewhat more calm and collected and have a nice conversation, because that's the only way, that's the democratic way of working out problems. My question is, are tariffs an indirect tax on Americans who purchase goods in this country? And I'm sure as a CPA, you will steer us in the right direction.
So I'll tell you, there is a short-term use of tariffs and long-term use of tariffs. And what President Trump has the tools, what he's trying to...
She's avoiding the answer, and that was one of her supporters, by the way. You can tell from the way I support you on the CBA. She's talking about he's talking about the Congressional Budget Office, which she has a position on. But the question is it an indirect tax? And the answer is yes. Yes. Because the tax falls upon who? The consumer. So yes, it is. If Americans have to pay more because a tax has been added, and the purpose of the tax is to disincentivize us from buying goods that have foreign things in them. So yes, it is a tax to disincentivize you from buying those things, which has sapped investor and consumer confidence.
To do, you know, and we agree, maybe disagree, and some of the things I might disagree in some ways, some I agree, but what is he trying to do, which some of the things I think it's a valid reason to say. If somebody's going to tariff us, and we should in return
to be clear, we're not like, oh, we're coming in to fight your tariffs. We're starting the tariffs and they're instituting retaliatory tariffs, right? And a lot of the instances where they're pointing to tariffs, it has to do with quotas, that they allow a certain amount of American import up until a certain point, which is something we do for foreign agricultural goods of certain types as well, by the way. Point is, there is like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, Trump went in there and we had all these tariffs and we're finally responding. That's not how this started. Trump, I remember when he was talking about Canada, he was saying, oh, how bad our previous trade deal with them. He was asking who negotiated it, even though, it was him. But that indicates that the things that were igniting the pain wasn't new tariffs that we needed to retaliate over.
Them to make sure that this country stabilizes. He wants to make sure that we bring American job back to us, to make America. We lost manufacturing and a lot of, in a lot of these jobs, loss of jobs is significant burden became for us because a lot of people don't have these opportunities. So I think we need to make sure that we realign them. So President Trump is using tariffs right now, to try to be able to stabilize the situation. But
has the situation been stabilized? Because again, if investor confidence is being sapped and consumer confidence is being sapped, and now we're seeing the Goldman Sachs and a lot of these financial behemoths coming out with increasing their predictions for the likelihood of a recession, in part because of the tariffs that are being placed. Is it stabilizing or is it destabilizing? Because it's destabilizing the economic ties we've built over 80 years. Our auto manufacturing production facilities are not all based in the United States. We import parts from Canada, and we're going to have to shut down those factory lines, or those factory lines are going to have to pay more, which means the costs are either passed down to the American consumer or the worker on the line who may lose his job due to the cost.
I don't have a mic, so fair, but you do agree then that tariffs are in effect a indirect.
She never answered the question.
Direct tax on Americans who are buying goods.
Again, that's one of her supporters. He tried to give her a softball and she swung wide.
On Americans who are buying goods.
It depends.
It doesn't depend. A tariff is a tax on Americans. A tariff is a tax. That doesn't mean it's never a justifiable tax in certain instances, but to deny it is a tax is to avoid politically unsavory language for your own benefit and to be dishonest and misleading to your constituents.
I'll tell you why. It depends. If you have alternatives or not on domestic productions, if you do help your industry or not, it depends if you try to realign with that. Actually,
even if you have alternatives for domestic production, it still essentially becomes a tax, because you know what happens for those companies that became the only competition? Let's say you produce auto parts and now all the foreign manufacturers are gone and now there's a supply shortage. What's going to happen to those goods? Do you think they're going to go up in price, or do you think they're going to go down in price?
Biden kept a lot of President Trump's tariffs because it helped to realign us to have domestic production of this job. So if you use it smartly and for the purpose and results, it actually brings growth to the economy and internal domestic economy. So it depends where they apply, how it apply, and for what reason. If you don't have some product in your country, never will have, and you're just going to be taxed for no reason, then it could be actually additional. But I think what you're trying
Wait, what do you mean if we do it for no reason, it's not a tax? That's not how taxes are taxes when they're done for no reason. Then no taxes are taxes. Did she have to drag her knuckles when coming into the meeting today? What do you? If it's a tariff done for no reason, tariffs done for a reason can also be taxes. Look, even if the reason's good, it's still a tax. You could just argue in favor of the tax. The problem is that she's a Republican, and the idea of saying taxes are sometimes necessary is acidic to their political culture.
Use it in a smart way and try to apply for industries and products.
Being honest about the necessities of statecraft is something that you cannot do when it's, again, the tax conversation in the United States. It's born in our nation's founding.
We can increase domestic production, where we can work with the other companies, not tariff our goods, because we don't allow our export for our farmers. A lot of these countries are blocking out. So in a lot of ways, and plus make sure that our allies also not really have distortion in the economy. So it depends on this, but they try to use it for right now for a reason to do realignment to the economy, and not for a reason to actually add cost, because they want to reduce cost. And we have a lot of foreign countries that control supply chain, and during COVID they increased significantly prices with no reason, because they control 80 to 90% of supply chain, like China.
Oh, really? Are you saying that if you isolate the market to a few companies, they can increase the prices because they're the only competition that's out? So what happens when not only you increase the tariffs on those goods that are imported from overseas, or goods that are produced domestically, like cars, but have to use foreign components? But what does that mean for the companies that don't, but now don't have competition? You think that companies, which main motivation is profit, are not going to take the opportunity to take advantage of the bottleneck that has been developed seemingly for their benefit? I mean, isn't that the purpose, is to help American companies? Why wouldn't they try to gouge? How would that not be passed to the consumer? Do you think the American consumer is going to care all that much about, well, it says made in America, if I have to pay 30 to 35% more, I guess no, they'll care. They'll care when it comes down to the kitchen top table issues. Look, if they could choose an American product over a foreign product, they'll do that. If they could choose it at a slight cost more to them, they'll do it. 25%? Even if it's 20%, 15%, it's already pretty significant. That is like a whole new tax on products. I mean, like a 5% sales tax. Some people say, oh, that's too much. 5% sales, 10% sales tax. We're talking about 25% tariff across the board. It's crazy, man. But it's not a tax because, if it's done with reason, then it's not a tax. Well, then I guess the income tax isn't a tax because it was done with reason.
And when they do that, they can set a fleet. So then they do that. They add so much to the cost. People don't realize that a lot of them never put their prices down. So actually, that is a larger tax. The supply chain, this is a true tax when they're able to jack up the prices with no justification and control the markets, because we don't have diversification, so we need to diversify this dependency. As a CPA and an economist, I have several degrees in economy, I'll tell you. As a CPA and economist, it depends what is applied and for which reason. And what is the end result you're trying to achieve? Every policy, it depends what the end result you're trying to achieve. And I think as the long term across the board, it brings negative, but in the short-term solution to realign the economy, it can actually bring very positive effects and also help with the price. But I can't, we need to move another. I reform it again. As a CPA and economist with an MBA and MPA and Bachelor's in International Economics, I say it depends. It depends. Listen, I understand. As a long-term solution, it is not a sustainable solution, and no one is planning to do it. It is not going to be happening, but as a short-term mechanism to realign, it could be done.
Our next question's from Anne.
Oh, we got some applause, but they're aiming. Oh, but they're looking at the question asker and applauding. So I thought for once she got some applause, but apparently not.
Yeah. We've all just come through a very difficult pandemic that my colleagues and I have supported our community through. And I'm seeing cuts in vaccine programs that really frighten me. because we are continually seeing viruses mutate, and we need to be prepared. So I feel that this is very short-sighted, especially given the recent experience that we've all just had.
Well, I think there are a few things.
By the way, look at how all these residents are supporting each other. You see how these older men and women and younger men standing up, clapping for each other, supporting them in this environment, like encouraging people to come up and speak. This is good.
Things that we need, and I appreciate it's actually a very important job, and we need to make sure that we have more independent family physicians that are being acquired by hospitals that get highly subsidized more and more. But talking about the cuts in the government employment, we have over 3 million employees, in the federal government. Actually, under President Clinton, I think he got
330 million people over that live in the United States. If 3 million sounds a lot like a lot of government workers, but when you realize how many people they service, maybe some of the jobs are redundant, but these are decisions that need to be made with Congress's authority of the power of the purse, not by the president and the richest man on the planet, unilaterally, an unelected bureaucrat who just so happens to have interests that conflict with many of the government institutions he's gutting. No. This is not gutting institutions based off of government efficiency. It's gutting institutions based on partisanship, the politicization of these institutions, and deregulation for the richest among us.
Almost 400,000 employees, and no one was screaming about that. But what we need, so we still...
By the way, if you ever needed encouragement to go to your town hall when your legislator is out there, here's your encouragement. You can use websites to Google and enter in your zip code to find out who your representative is.
3 million left. What they try to see how we make sure that we provide the services in a more effective way, and we make sure that people that work in these agencies actually do the work for the people. Because with bureaucracy, where we try to do everything at the federal level, and we're good at nothing. And you saw what's happened in the last pandemic. No one was ready to that pandemic. No one was ready. And the agencies, we had oversight hearings. Pandemic happened 4 years ago. They didn't change a bit. So something has to happen because things can happen and we need to be ready for next pandemic. But agencies has to become more accountable to the people. We need to do a better job with oversight of our budget, which is congressional fault. 85% of our money we never looked at. Congress haven't looked for decades. 85%. 85% of the money. Congress never looked. So we're not authorized to spend and we haven't been looking.
Well, it doesn't matter if Congress can look or not look. Congress doesn't have a say. It's now just the president, King Trump's authority to say what things get spent on, what things don't. Cut this, cut that. Doesn't matter what Congress says. What do you mean Congress needs to look? It wasn't Congress that cut it.
I have actually put a working group together and put in pressure on my own party, try to do some reforms that we start doing a better job to see which programs are good, find them better, which programs are bad. That's what we need to do. We need to make sure that looking at them and make sure that our branches are held accountable and we have best and brightest that want to come to work to federal government. And it is unfortunately not the case.
They're purging the best and brightest right now from the federal government. People with good performance reviews as they're just gutting entire departments, calling them useless. You think those people at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that returned $20 billion to Americans were not good workers?
Anymore. So I think if you're ever interested, you work in healthcare, I have advisory group I always meet. I would appreciate your input because I'm personally involved in fixing a lot of distortion and problems in healthcare. And I hope we can have a bipartisan conversation on that. And if you leave your information, interested to participate, I think if we have a smaller group, we can have more productive conversations on this issue. I'd be happy to hear you. And then please leave your information on that.
Okay, we're going to end it there.
Go over the rules.
Okay, I'm already extending it out. Danabo is going to kill me, okay?